share a little bit. In 2009, we had a group that traveled to Israel and Jordan, and we had a wonderful time.
No.
Yes, I can't believe it's been that long ago, but it has been. And then about 2-3 years ago, I took a group to Lutherland, and we traveled throughout Poland, the Czech Republic, and Germany, and it was another fine trip.
Awesome.
And this has always been a trip that's been in the works, and it is the footsteps of Paul. And some of you know that my father's a pastor, and he went on this trip twice while he was in ministry, and he said, along with the Holy Land, this was his, the pinnacle of his travels. So I have been looking forward to this trip. I think that it's going to be a phenomenal trip so far. We are at 28. I was a part of a men's retreat this last weekend. I had not invited this group of guys, and I did put out an invitation, and I have now received quite a bit of feedback that we're probably going to get to 30. And in fact, I might have to be shutting off the list. So
I gave it out to a new group this weekend too.
So hey,
so
we might have
we'll
two
see who gets there
busloads.
first.
Yes.
Yeah, careful.
So this is great. That's a good problem to have. But we have. I typically look at 30 as a good number of people to travel with, mainly because if the group gets too large, it gets a little bit more unwieldy. It's nice to have people get to know each other a little bit as we travel throughout these wonderful places. And then as we look at the timing of this trip, we chose April because it is good weather, very nice weather. I'm going to say averaging about 65, 70 degrees, good travel weather. And it is good, and it's before the real busy season. So we're going to be, just kind of on the front side of the busy season with some good weather. Okay, so I wanted to start tonight and just give you an overview why this is kind of a real passionate journey for me, and that is because it's Apostle Paul's footsteps. And Paul, as you know, is the most prolific biblical writer. He started the early Christian churches throughout Israel and Greece and other places throughout Europe, in the Middle East. And I want to just give a really quick overview, and then we're going to dive right into the trip, okay? But I think it's important for us to get a reason why we're going to these places, and that is Paul was a missionary. Paul was sent out from Jerusalem, which was really his headquarters, as the post-resurrection church was starting. We know that Peter stayed back in Jerusalem, was kind of the patriarch in the homeland, if you will, of Israel, and Paul was sent out, and that's really what apostle means, to be sent out. And he went on 3 major journeys throughout his career, and I'm going to share this at the end. He walked over 2,700 miles in his journeys. We know that. That's minimally what he walked, okay? And we know that by just the sheer history of him walking from place to place. That does not include his travels by sea, okay? So he traveled by sea, and then he traveled by foot. I want to make sure this is working here. No, you might get to do that forward and back button for me.
All right.
All right?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Here, this is Paul's first journey. And Paul's first journey is his shortest journey. And this is where he traveled north from Jerusalem to Antioch. And Antioch is going to now be really his home away from home. This is going to be the secondary starting place for his journeys. And later on, Antioch here and Antioch here up in the Middle East are going to become the real foundation of the Orthodox faith, the Eastern Church, if you will. And they're going to have 2 large schools going on in both Antioch, Seleucia, and Antioch in the mainland Turkey. But We know that Paul is from Tarsus, so it's no wonder that he chose to come up this way to kind of begin his career or begin his missionary trips, that he's kind of going home. Now the first trip, he does a quick trip in and through eastern part of the Middle East, the eastern part, I should say, of the churches. We know that this is his first go-around, and he finds himself recognizing that he was rather, successful, and that he felt that he went out and proclaimed the word, and he was able to move on. Now let's see if this can work here. Oops. Okay. So 48 AD, this is rough estimates, okay? So we know this is 15 years after the death of Jesus, give or take. And he begins his journey, and he travels to Cyprus, to Perga, and then he travels with Barnabas, and this is all found throughout the book of Acts. In 49, he returns, and he goes back to Antioch. So traveled total of miles in this journey, 1,400, okay? And what's really interesting is that when we saw the journey, he's traveling actually over mountains, okay? And we know that as he's traveling over mountains, he actually would travel them and they'd be snow covered. Some of them are very much snow covered. There's a few areas that would be snow covered almost all year round. So he's making this bold attempt. Now this is the same guy, remember, was persecuting Christians. I always have thought of this as, if you want to look at an example of what it means to be a witness, here's a guy who was persecuting Christians, and now he can't get enough of the missionary life. He goes out, and now he's traveling over mountains, and we hear later on that he survives beatings and jail time, starvation, all because he wants to spread this message. The second journey is going to be really important for us, because this is the journey that we're going to see parts of. He sets out, and again, there's this idea that he travels by way of Antioch, and he goes up here, and now this, if you were to look at the landscape here, this is where you're going to see mountains. And if you've ever been to Turkey or seen pictures of Turkey, Turkey's actually a pretty mountainous country. And yet he's going to be traveling straight through the lands of Turkey, and he's going to come up here to Troas, and then he's going to start, and you're going to start, really recognizing some of these places, right? Philippi, later on the letter to Philippians. You get to Thessalonica, which is the Thessalonians. And then he heads down here into Athens, Corinth, over to Ephesus, and then now he makes his way back through Rhodes, back to Jerusalem. Now, one of the things that we want to particularly pay attention to is, if you come up here, the Istanbul, which Constantinople, Istanbul, Byzantia, these are all the same names for the same city, is up in this area. And initially we had the hopes that we were going to travel to Istanbul first. In fact, that's been on one of my lists for a very long time. However, when the State Department, at the time that we were beginning this conversation, was saying large groups of Westerners and U.S. citizens should be prepared to, or be on high guard. So at that point I said, we probably don't need that. I don't want, I would feel, I think, pretty comfortable in Istanbul by myself, but I said, hey, I don't want to take 29 other people with me and feel responsible in Istanbul. So we scratched that, okay? And because we scratched that, we had to kind of redo our trip. And that is that we are not going to take this northern journey, okay? And this northern journey is going to have to come a different time, at a different time. But I will say this northern journey is really not the sights of Paul that really you need to see. Thessalonica is a very nice place. Berea, very nice place. Philippi, my grandpa used to call me Philippi. Very nice place, but really small in terms of what you see, okay? And so what we did is, instead of having Istanbul, we added Rome. And so that is kind of and when you go to Rome, you'll probably see some bigger sites than there, but we'll take that as we go. But Athens, here it is that Paul makes his stand, right, in the main center of Athens. And as we go there, you're going to still see today the markings of all the Greek gods. And he stands in the midst of all these statues, and he says, you know, look at all of these gods you have, you know. And then remember in Scripture, he looks over and there's a statue with no name, and he says, this is the God that I believe, and this that I preach. This is the God, the one true God. Now remember what it means to be polytheistic. Polytheistic means you believe in many gods, and Paul ushers in this notion of the one true God, monotheism, and that is a big deal because that really triggers. Not only does it trigger the Christian church in the Greek peninsula, which is very important because that's the Orthodox church of today, but it also begins this notion that Rome and other Greek leaders are going to be kind of after him, okay? Because we know persecution is not very far behind him. Okay, go ahead.
It says a comment. The red lion looks like an animal. A humpy animal.
It does. It looks like an animal. Yes.
A humpy animal.
Take it for a 9-year-old to show us that. Thank you. Could you also move forward?
Sure.
Okay, so here, I'm going to be able to pass this on to you too, all this, so that you can kind of follow along. The secondary mission begins at Antioch. He goes to that northern part of Turkey, and then he comes down here, and he meets up with Timothy at Philippi.
Sorry, Dad.
Okay. And Thessalonica and Berea. And then that's when he goes down to Athens, and he travels to Corinth. He writes in Corinth the first letter to the Thessalonians, and then he meets Aquila and Priscilla because that's going to be a big deal later on when Rome comes into play at the other end. He stays in Corinth, and he actually stays in Corinth the second longest period of time outside of Jerusalem and Antioch. Ephesus is the longest that he stays in any one place, and Corinth is the other. So we're going to be going to both of those places. And he writes 2 Thessalonians a year later. And then he looks again to travel back, and he goes back to Antioch. Now, I had said 2,700 miles that he journeyed on foot, right? Well, this is his second journey, and it's 2,800 miles in and of itself. So when they say 2,700 miles by foot, it's probably an underestimation. But here, now we're at almost 5,000 miles that he walked or he journeyed. Okay, please keep going there.
All right.
I'm so happy that I have my handy assistant.
Wait,
here.
no, it's the wrong page.
No, that's right. Oh, yep, that's right, right there.
It's a different animal.
Yes, a different animal.
No, it's a different animal.
Big Mom, you need to sit down now.
Okay.
Okay, so now this is the third journey, and the third journey is that he's starting out at Antioch again, and he goes back to these places that he's already been. And this is the a common theme with Paul is that he goes, writes a letter, and then he says, "I'm coming back to you." And I think that's important for our missions today in the church, is to say not only that we write this letter or that we preach this message, but we continue to come back and say, we're not just sending you out, we want to be a part of your life. And so then he goes back into Athens and Corinth, and then ends up going back to Jerusalem. And it is here that in Jerusalem now, what happens? Do you remember?
Oh, Jesus dies.
That was,
No, got born.
that was before. That was right. But now this is Paul. This is after Jesus died.
He got born there.
He's put in prison, isn't
What was that, Janet?
he? Prison, isn't it?
Yeah, he actually runs into the Sanhedrin. Remember, and then the Greek governor comes in, and he has to go in front of them, and he has to proclaim that he's not fighting against the Roman government, and that he's not blaspheming. And he is then taken to Caesarea. Remember Caesarea, and then he is put aboard a ship, and the ship takes him back to Rome. Okay. Can you?
Mm-hmm.
Caesarea Philippi.
Yeah, there's two Caesareas. Just so
That's
there's Caesarea Philippi and there's Caesarea Maritima. And Caesarea Maritima is on the coast. That's where he was.
I think you kind of go past it.
We went past it. We weren't able to go in it when we were
Right.
there, but you can see kind of the
Aqueducts.
Yeah, I remember that huge aqueduct that we saw along. Not everybody was there, but we saw this huge aqueduct that King Solomon actually created. It's absolutely huge.
Do you have a picture of that in your pocket?
I don't, but I could probably bring that out.
We do on our computer with our other million.
Million. Yeah, I took 3,000 pictures when I was in Israel the first time. So, third journey, then he goes to Ephesus. He writes to the Corinthians. The Corinthians were having a very difficult time, a rowdy bunch. And when we are there, as we're going in the morning on the bus, we'll read some of these scripture passages so that we know what we're seeing. They're a rowdy bunch. But then he also then goes to Corinth and he writes Galatians. And I would say if there are two letters in the Pauline epistles, Pauline texts, I would say Galatians and Romans are the two that I would encourage people to read, because they are probably I would say the magnum opuses.
Romans are the most commonly studied, but Galatians are just beautiful.
Yeah, Galatians is a very, very powerful text. And so there will be some challenges at the end of the evening tonight about some reading materials. Okay. Then spring. Now remember, he's in Corinth, and he writes to where? He writes to Romans, to Rome. And a lot of people don't recognize that, that is what triggers now this idea that he wants to go to Rome, and then he actually wants to go to Spain. And this is going to be kind of a precursor of what's to come. You kind of can see, all right, he's going to go to Rome, but he's not going to go maybe under his own auspices. Okay? So he arrives in Jerusalem, he is arrested, and then he's sent to Caesarea, the last 2,700 miles. Okay, so 27, 28, and 17, we're looking at 6,500 miles. That's a lot of miles. Now remember, he did not have a luxury coach bus that we will be traveling in. He walked by feet, and that's a pretty amazing thing. So this is his captive journey. Now I want to keep this up because I'm going to show kind of the areas that we'll be traveling to, okay? We're going to be flying into Athens, and Athens has a port that is the second largest port in Europe, actually, okay? The Piraeus port, Piraeus, is where we will hop on the cruise ship, okay? Athens and Corinth are not very far apart. Athens, we will see in Athens, and we'll go through this in a minute, we'll see the significant historical sites, and there's a lot to see in Athens. But then we'll travel to Corinth, which is in this area right here. Does anyone know what this little island peninsula is called? It's very important in history, especially in early Greek history. It's the Peloponnese. We remember hearing about the Peloponnesian Wars. the Peloponnesian Wars between Sparta and anybody? Sparta. I'm drawing a blank right now too. So I Sparta and okay. Anyway, they fought, and it's remember the Trojan horse that they brought in, the wooden Trojan horse, the story of Sparta and Troy. Thank you very much. Sparta and Troy. So that takes place in this land of the Peloponnese. We'll be kind of overseeing some of the Peloponnese at a distance, but we'll certainly be in Corinth, in the old and new city of Corinth. And there you'll see unbelievable amounts of history, not only Christian, but also Greek history as well. We'll travel through the isles here, and you're going to see these islands are going to be up in here. You can't see them, but the first island, Mykonos, there'll be, then we'll stop over here in Ephesus. Now, a few people said, you know, what country is Ephesus in? Ephesus is in Turkey, okay? And so we will be in Turkey, but we'll be in Turkey for about 5 hours, okay? And Ephesus is about 20 miles from the coast. So we'll be on a bus for about half hour, and we'll get to Ephesus. We'll be able to go out with the tour guides at Ephesus, see the sights, and we'll get back, and then we'll get back on the ship again. We won't be alone, but we will have the ability to have our own tour guides, and the ship really centers and does this for us. And the ship, they do a phenomenal job. My parents went on almost the exact same ship when they were there, and they really enjoyed the accommodations, and the ship did a very, very good job. Every day that we stop, every stop that we stop in the cruise, there will be options for you to go out and see different sites on the islands. Mykonos, Crete. You know that Crete is the ancient Minoan civilization, extremely warfaring, right? And we'll also see Patmos, and Patmos historically.
Is where John was.
Revelation.
Correct. That's where John was imprisoned.
Revelations was written.
Yes, and he had his revelation from God, and this is where he wrote down the book of Revelation. Phenomenal kind of historical site as well. And then there's going to be a couple optional trips that you can go out as well from the ship. But those are the main stops. Yes.
Was Patmos a prison island?
Yes.
It was strictly for exiles. Well,
Yes, there
exiles.
were some people. Historians suggest that there were some people that maybe have lived on the island, but primarily it was used for exiles. So people, you know,
I just wondered.
to take them away.
Over.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So you can see Crete here. Crete's a very large island, and that's, you know, Paul did stop on Crete in his ship. You see Malta's way over here. Malta, he had a shipwreck. Remember, and he was saved by the guard. And then we come up to Rome. So we'll be seeing this latter southern part of Paul's journeys. Okay.
Are we going on that, on a boat?
No, we will not be. So good question. So we'll go to Athens, Corinth, through the Greek Isles, Ephesus, Greek Isles, Athens, fly to Rome. Okay?
Okay.
Yeah. Now this would be a lot longer of a journey. Would be a neat journey. But
Awesome.
yes. What's that?
Where's Greece?
Where's Greece? This whole area right here is Greece. This is kind of an old map, and I have another map that I can show at the end here tonight. But again, we are seeing these sites where Paul wrote almost all of his books, or all of his letters, I should say. So in Rome, he writes Philemon, Colossians, Ephesians. He writes then Philippians. So this is, you know, we're going to see the sites where he spent most of his time. And then there is some historical disagreement as to what happened to Paul after he got to Rome. Remember that he was put under house arrest. Some suggest that he may have had the freedom, or he got to go to Spain later in life. There's some documentation that he might have gotten to Spain. That was one of his goals, that he wanted to go all the way to Spain. But then he does come back, and he is executed in Rome under Nero. And what's so interesting is that Nero dies literally like within the same month that Paul dies. So some suggest that perhaps if Nero would have died on the first side, that maybe he would have had a chance and would not have been put to death. But
he also may have had a lot of freedom because Paul he had the Roman citizenship.
correct.
And that gave him privilege way above and beyond
Correct.
let's face it, Rome ruled the world.
Correct.
So he may have been able, what you're saying, it very well could have
Yep.
been that he did other travels.
Yeah, Paul was an intellectual. He was kind of the cream of the crop in the Jewish circles. That's when he says, "I was the the zealot of all zealots, and I was the Pharisee of all Pharisees." It's true. History suggests that he's a very smart man. But does anyone know what his skill really, how he made a living?
Tent maker.
He was a tent maker.
I got the book, by the way. It's a good book.
Yes.
We have a
Yes.
copy. Reading it.
We do have a couple
Anybody wants.
copies, and we'll talk about that in a minute too. There's another one here, Noah.
There is.
Mm-hmm.
Well, here.
I'm gonna apologize for whoever wanted coffee. Apparently my coffee maker's broken. It's not working, so I'm really sorry. I do have a Keurig, but it's only regular. Would anybody like a regular coffee? Chris, did you want more?
I'm okay.
Sure.
Yes,
I know
thank you.
that works.
This is the same one.
No,
It is?
Yeah.
I'm really sorry about that.
no
Excuse
problem.
me.
We're gonna probably have to taste.
Now you don't want to go on the trip? Is that what you're saying?
Do they have coffee there?
Yes,
Ooh,
they do.
yes, strong coffee.
All right, here we go. Go to the next slide.
I'm videotaping for the rest
You
of the
get to
group
click
so
on
they
it,
can watch
okay.
this later. So say hi to them all.
Hi there. My name is Noah.
There's Noah. Noah will not be coming along. Oh. But we'll be thinking of you every day.
Your dad
And
will
possibly
make
even
a
phone
couple
calling.
extra pictures for you.
Yes, I will.
Sorry.
And I'm told he's going to look for a really cool gift too.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, Dad.
Do you do that, or did I just?
I don't know what you're talking about there. We haven't discussed this yet.
It'll be a
That
seashell.
is something.
All right, here we go.
They're older, they know.
All right, we're gonna go up here.
But that's close to your birthday.
Go up. Yes, it is.
What is his? What is his birthday?
On the trip, is that
The
what-
20th. April 20th.
So on the trip, it'll be his
As
birthday.
we're boarding the
Write it down to your calendars, everyone. The
going
20th
to
of April.
Mykonos, that is the infamous day. I also share birthday with Adolf Hitler
Oh, that's not so good.
and Columbine.
That's a
So
good.
yeah, I'm not.
Well, we'll celebrate your birthday.
There we go. Yes. Okay, in the footsteps of Paul, we have April 16th.
I don't know.
On April, that's fine. Keep it there, please.
Oh.
On April 16th, this is our travel itinerary, okay? And you'll be getting this within the month, okay? We plan on having another meeting in March where you'll actually get the actual itinerary. There will be ticket information. All of that will be given to you at that time. We do have, sorry, that's our little puppy. We do have the travel itinerary set. There's one item that might be flexible, and we're hoping that it's flexible because that means it'll be better for us, and that is the flight from Athens to Rome. We're trying to get a little bit earlier flight, but this is so far what we have. We depart from O'Hare at noon, okay? So those of us who are traveling from Wisconsin, the hope is that we're gonna get a shuttle and have a shuttle from, yeah, either from St. Matthew's or St. John's in Brookfield, okay? Either place we're just gonna finalize which church is okay with us parking in their parking lot. Chris, are we?
We're fine.
Okay, we're good. Good. Chris is pastor at St. Matthew's in Wauwatosa.
I've got a little pull.
He's got a little pull, which is helpful. And so then we'll take a shuttle down. We will be there in plenty of time. We might probably be leaving the church around 7 in the morning, 7:30, and to get there in plenty of time. We do have one layover, and that is at JFK. And it's actually going to be pretty significant because the folks that are from California, Colorado, and folks from Colorado, Texas, are going to be meeting us there. Okay? They all have flights to come in and meet, and then we fly off in JFK. And we depart at 5:18.
What
Okay?
airline?
We are flying Delta.
All the way?
All the way. Yep. Delta is the trip of
So,
the airline of our.
Second question on that.
Yep.
If you're flying Delta and we don't have, can we get flight miles for that?
Yes.
So if you don't have it, we should get a flight
Correct.
reward card before
Correct.
we even go. Okay.
Correct.
thank
Because
you.
then and make sure you get that award number to Ami Travel.
That's what I needed to know.
Yep.
Thank you, sir.
Yep. They will get you miles. We arrive in Athens at 10 a.m. Okay. You'll notice that when we travel that way, it seems like a lot longer because we're fighting. You know, we're going ahead in time, right? So it's going to be 10 a.m. the next morning. And when we land at 10, and what's nice is that we'll go to the hotel, and the remainder of that day will be at your leisure, okay? And there will be different items, different locations that we'll suggest as we get there. If you're up and antsy and you want to do something, we'll have plenty of options to do so.
Just to interject, whenever we say a day at your leisure, there's always going to be things like options set for you. Yair is very good at just setting up.
I put
go on this, go on that, so that you don't feel like where do
Right.
I go, what do I do?
These are not going to be expensive options. So
But American money, or do we have to ask?
What money do they have there?
we are good question. It is a Euro country,
Oh, it is? Okay.
right? So we are.
Oh, I have yours.
So we.
Okay.
So we are going to. We will discuss that in just a minute.
Well,
We'll
or you could do that in March. I just
Yep.
wondered.
No, we'll discuss that again, but we'll kind of go into some of the more detailed things. I'm just going to go through this really quickly because you've probably already maybe researched some of this. But in Athens, we will see the Acropolis. Acropolis is the high hill that is the historical significance, the center of Greece. Museum, the Acropolis Museum, it's supposedly the #1 museum in Greece and the #1 museum to see Greek items of antiquity. So it's pretty impressive is what they're saying. Parthenon. Parthenon, you know, was an old temple, the temple to Athena. And this is a pretty impressive site. And we will be having plenty of time to see that. The Erechtheion and the Areopagus. The Areopagus, these are other historical sites. These are actually natural made rocks and formations that were very big for Greek culture. Mars Hill, which is also a part of this, we will see as well. And again, some of this is where Paul stood up in the middle of the crowd, and what did he said, I am worshiping the one true God, you know, the God that you do not know here. Presidential palace, so we'll see some things of the present day.
Is that the Great Wall of China?
No, it's not the Great Wall of China. What do you think this is?
The temple of something.
Good. Temple. Anybody?
A broken temple.
What is this?
That's my answer.
Parthenon?
Parthenon, is it?
No?
I don't
Yes?
It's
This is part of the Acropolis.
Yeah, that's
we'll,
what I, yeah.
we'll figure this out as we go
And then
forward.
what's the bottom?
Please
We'll be experts by the time we get back.
Yes, you will. Yes, you will. You don't need to be experts on the way there. This is Corinth. And Corinth, this is very neat. This is the agora. And when I say the agora, remember the natural hill. This is the natural hill. And the old Corinth is up here. And down here you'll see the current Corinth. Corinth is actually a pretty big port city of Greece. And then this is the old Corinth.
Are we going to climb up there?
We will.
You're climbing from the bottom to
We
the
will.
top to the
Yeah.
bottom.
Yeah, there's a couple ropes that we will.
Yeah.
No, this is actually a very accessible. We don't see it on this, but there's actually a road that you can actually travel up.
Good, I'll take the car.
Yeah, there's no belaying or anything like that that's going to be going on, unless you really want to. But there's Apollo's temple. You'll see that the Christian church is going to be planted right in the midst of Greek pantheism or Greek religion. So Agora, we go back to Athens and we have dinner. Okay, let's go on again there, Noah, because there's
Your birthday.
yeah, April 20th through the 23rd. This is our Greek cruise through the Greek Isles. Mykonos, this is Mykonos, by the way. Mykonos is going to be more of the upscale restaurants and kind of going through the streets and a lot of good shopping in Mykonos. So yes, if you do like to shop, this is going to be one of your places. This is, so bring your wallets, and we'll talk more about the currency and what to bring in just a moment. But you're going to have ample opportunity to see the sites in Mykonos. The cathedrals or the chapels are impressive in all these islands because it's Greek Orthodox, right? Greek Orthodox typically has a lot more ornamental gold inlaid altars and whatnot. So you'll see that. We will go to Mykonos, then Ephesus. Again, Ephesus is just going to be a short bus ride. We'll see the sites. Ephesus is on UNESCO's World History list as one of the top 10 ancient history sites to see in the world. So we'll be there. Patmos, St. John's, we already went through this. Crete, Santorini. Santorini is another place that you can go shopping. A nice place, and there'll be, you know, opportunities to go and have a wine, a glass of wine, and a nice lunch and whatnot. But everything comes back to the boat, which is really nice. At the end of the day, you can kind of come back, you can kind of relax, go at your own speed. And that's a benefit of this trip that we haven't had in the past, is that this cruise is going to allow you to say, hey, I want to go, 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 or maybe I just want to come back to the boat and I just want to chill. I want to sit down, and there's plenty of activities on the boat too, but you can do as you choose. This Tyra and Oie is an optional, and that's just on the island of Crete. It's just an area that you can go out to.
What would make that special to see?
That is going to be much more the Minoan society there, and I believe there's hot springs. Like there's an area that you can go and you can spend time in hot springs. It's kind of a spa type of area, and it's world famous. So if you want to bring your bikini, you can do that as well.
I'd have to get one.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So we arrive in Rome on the 23rd. So we've gone through our cruise. We arrive in Rome, and again, we arrive in the afternoon, and then we have this leisure, this idea that there will be options for you to go on. There will be dinner at the hotel available for you, but you don't have to have that dinner if you're out and about. Okay. April 24th. The next day we see the Vatican. This is probably the busiest of all the days, okay? And some of you may be gone to Rome and you've done this before. You see the sights, and there's a lot there. We see the Vatican. Within the Vatican, obviously we have the Sistine Chapel, St. Peter's Basilica. We will see the catacombs, which is something that is kind of unusual, but it is an absolute sight to see. one of the largest, if not the largest, catacomb in the world. The Colosseum, we'll see the Forum, and then that evening we have a traditional dinner at a restaurant with operatic singers. It's not an Italian trip without Italian food and opera. Okay. The next day we get up and we do, and this is a little bit more specific to Paul. This day, the Mamertine prison is where Paul would have been imprisoned as when he was under house arrest, yes, but he also was in prison for a time. This is where he was in prison. This St. Paula alla Regola is just an unbelievable church, and we'll be going into that. The Abbey, the Three Fountains, these are sites that you'll say I've seen. The Basilica of St. Paul, and this whole area is going to be right next to each other. The Basilica of St. Paul, and then right next door, not too far down, is the Augustinian Monastery and this Church of San Maria del Popolo. Now the reason why this is very important is that this is actually another place where Paul stayed. This was a more like the place where he had house arrest. Okay, and as you go into the Church of San Maria del Popolo, this is also going to be connected to Martin Luther. The Martin Luther, when he came to, remember when he came to Rome, and he was so disappointed with what he saw. This is going to be in that general area as well, along with the Trevi Fountain. Remember the steps that went up, and then they could pay money.
Wasn't it a movie 3 coins in a fountain?
Yeah, so at that point we're going to see some Lutheran history as well, near and dear to my heart. And then the Trevi Fountain, probably one of the most beautiful fountains. Go ahead.
We didn't talk about dinner.
Dinner on your own. Thank you. He keeps me to task. April 26th, Rome. Leisure day. Again, there will be 2 to 3 options on this day. Okay. I don't want anyone to feel nervous, like, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do. It'll be laid out ahead of time what the options are. In fact, we hope that the next meeting in March, we will have those options out there for you. Okay. And I know that 2 options are already in the works. One is you can go to Pompeii. Okay, if you want to go down, see Pompeii, Mount Vesuvius, that will be one trip. There will also be a trip north into Tuscany, perhaps to Florence. And that will be another, it's a day trip, okay? So those are the 2 right now that I know, and I think there'll be a 3rd option to really just stay in Rome and do something around the hotel. Something a little bit more.
Can we do them all?
Yeah, it would be nice, wouldn't it? Wouldn't it be nice to head down to Pompeii? So yeah, it's going to be tough choices. And I know what I'm going to choose, but what I choose is not necessarily what everybody else chooses. I am going to enjoy some wine in Tuscany. So that is one of the things that, if we can get to Florence, that would be a real neat thing to see. Florence, and we wouldn't be able to probably see everything in Florence, because Florence in and of itself is a pretty spectacular city. But, and I know that to get to Florence, it's going to be a couple-hour train ride. So it's, some travel up, spend some time up there, maybe see a winery or 2, a vineyard, and then come back. But then Pompeii, I've heard people say that is a must-see as well, to see Pompeii. So, farewell dinner is that evening. We're pushing that farewell dinner back. So it's going to be later. So people can spend the full day doing what they want to do. But we do have a farewell dinner that evening. And most likely it'll be like an 8 o'clock dinner. Okay? We don't want to be too late either, because we're going to be traveling. But we do want to allow people to have enough time to go and do these sites in Pompeii and Florence. But we'll have that all prepared for this next meeting coming up. That night there will be a farewell dinner, and those are really fun because I will guarantee one thing, you will get to know some pretty awesome people on this journey, okay, on this trip. It's fun to be able to have that last dinner. On the next day we do depart at 11:15, so that means that we do have to get up significantly early, not too early, which is actually nice, but we have to get up early and get to and Detroit. Our connection on the way back is Detroit. Of all places, 3:40. And then we'll depart Detroit at 5:35, and we arrive in O'Hare at 6:01, where the shuttle for us folks in Wisconsin will be picking us up. And folks, we can talk about how everybody else is also traveling with them.
Iowa.
Illinois.
Oh, never mind.
Next slide there, Noah.
Okay.
This is now the part of the meeting that I think is going to be really important, and this is going to be more crystal clear as we come now next month. Okay. The shuttle to and from O'Hare, we talked a little bit about that. We talked about we want to talk about clothing and accessories to bring. Okay. The clothing that you should bring on this trip, it does not have to be formal. There's really nothing too formal. I would suggest having one nicer outfit, okay? And that one nicer outfit might be used maybe twice during the trip, okay? One, perhaps on the cruise ship one evening, you will want to go to one of the finer restaurants. And you might want to get dressed up. You don't have to wear that to go into the finer restaurant, but you might want to. The other one is going to be the day that we go into the Vatican. We don't have to wear anything too nice, but we might want to have something that's a little bit more business casual or whatever, if you will. Otherwise, it's going to be wear comfortable travel clothes. Make sure you have good walking shoes. Make sure that you have some layers, okay? Although it's not going to be cold, in fact, 70 degrees, comfortable, right? On the ship, and in the evenings, it'll get cool. I mean, it'll get down possibly in the 50s, and you want to have at least some kind of warmer clothes. So I always say layers. Bring some layers along. And Noah, can you go back to the last one? It's the 13th. There you go. Can you make it big?
Yeah, sure. Let's see. It's this.
Wow, he knows more than I do. That is unbelievable. Okay. And accessories to pack, okay? This is something like if you have your cell phones, okay? Your cell phones, you'll want to get that universal adapter for the plugins, okay? The plugins are going to be the European plugins. And remember, instead of they have the kind of the 3-prong, I believe. Oh, 2-prong, sorry. Is there 3? Yeah, 3-prong. If you need any help with that, let me know. You want to have that. I'm going to have a phone that is going to be unlocked to be able to use internationally. And when you do that, you can also use some apps that are pretty cool. The WhatsApp
is free.
yeah, is pretty neat, and you can communicate with anyone basically in the world for free. I'm going to have some voice as well, as I can always make phone calls for someone else on the trip. But go to your phone company, tell them that you're traveling, and tell them where you're traveling, and they will tell you what kind of plan you want to maybe get on during that time. My company charges me $10, I believe. Verizon charges me $10 extra to have the international during the month.
They'll have Wi-Fi in the hotels, I'm sure.
Correct. Wi-Fi will be there, so you can do all your emailing and everything like that as well. You want to contact, you don't want to email, no. You don't want to. I'm not going to email either. You'll want to contact your credit cards.
Yeah.
Okay. You want to obviously contact your bank or credit card. Let them know that you're going to be traveling internationally. That way, it's not shut off, and you're in Athens, and you're saying, "Why isn't my card working?" You want to bring an ATM card. Okay. When we talk about currency here, the best way internationally today to really have money currency-wise is to bring your ATM card. ATM cards, you can put them in and you can say, I want 200 euros, and it'll come out as euros, right? And it'll do all the calculation of what that is there for you, and it'll come back and you'll say that you got 200 euros, which equals how many dollars. Right now, the dollar's actually been pretty strong against the euro, so it's not as big of discrepancy between the two as it has been in the past. I am going to suggest that everybody gets some euros, okay? And when I say some, I'm saying maybe $100 worth, okay? And that is just to have in your pocket when you get to Athens, and you know that you have. It's for your own peace of mind that you have 100 euros with you, okay?
You need that to go to the bathroom.
Sure, yes, for
That's
water
right.
closets, you might have to have,
That's right.
yeah, for water closets, you might have to have some of that as well. But when we get to the airport, Yair has told me that we will be able to go to the ATM in the airport. They have a console where we can all just go and we can just get money. And there will be ATMs pretty much everywhere we go, okay? Hotels typically have those ATMs and you can pick up your money. We don't have to be traveling with a lot of cash anymore, that's a good thing. Traveler's checks are no longer. Don't travel with them because there's been way too much fraud, forgery with traveler's checks. A lot of people won't take them anymore. Okay? Any questions with currency? This is like you're traveling in Germany. We're going to be in Euro countries. Okay? So same type of currency situation.
It's very easy. You use your credit card when you.
Credit card too, yeah. Visa, MasterCard. Some places have American Express, interestingly
They don't
enough.
like it.
Discover is not necessarily there either. So Visa and MasterCard are the two major ones. Yep. I'm gonna ignore down here. Safety and travel guides. I wanted to step into that and saying that your safety is obviously number one for all of us, but I want you to know that safety is the number one priority of these countries too. Greece, Italy, the number one economy is tourism. The number one way in which they get their wealth is through tourism, and they want to keep it that way. Just like in Israel. Israel is a very safe place. Very safe place. It's very rare that you've ever heard anyone get in trouble in Israel, even though we hear all these stories. Well, that's because tourism is really, they want to keep everybody safe. Same places, same here. We will want to travel with some kind of zipped or closed pocket for your personal item, your important, like money. If you want to keep your passport on your person, you want to have it in a zipped, some kind of bag that's not easily taken off, because in every city there are pickpockets, right? And you want to just make sure that you have that all taken care of and have it safe. We have travel guides, tour guides, in every city that we go. So we will have someone who is a professional of that city, of that location with us. So they'll know where they're going, what they're doing. We won't be left to our own on these trips.
Good.
Yeah, thank you. Hotel accommodations. So we are staying in 4-star hotels. 4-star. So, yeah, we're not staying in the, you know, Crystal Hotel 5-star, but we're staying in some very nice hotels. And that affords us to have, you know, ATMs, opportunities to eat at our hotel. And they're all located in very good locations for us to go in and out from our touring.
So most of the meals are our own expense?
No. No. Lunches typically are at your own expense.
Okay.
Breakfast and dinner are almost every day, except for maybe 2 dinners that are on your own. Otherwise, everything is paid for breakfast and dinner. Okay? There's one item that we do have to talk about, and that is tipping. That was not included in the cost of the trip, okay? And so we do need to tip, and we need to tip our bus driver, our tour guides, and our bellhops, okay? So we've done this in the past, and the easiest way for you to do that is to give me the tips, and then we will dole it out. Usually it's 1 to them and then 2 to me. So, no, we make sure that everybody is paid what they need to. Right now, and we'll get this figured out to you more, we believe that's going to be $100 per person. Okay, and that is all the tipping that we need to be doing on this trip.
That's it?
$100 per person. Yep.
100 for him,
Yep.
100 for me.
Yep, for tipping.
Give it to Phil.
Phil will
Yep.
tip everybody a lot.
I thought you meant each guide was gonna
Yeah,
get
yeah,
$100.
yeah. But that's-
No,
Each of us.
$100. Yeah, $100 each guide from each of you. I'm going into a new business. Yeah, no, $100 to me. Then we will divvy that up, and we will make sure that the appropriate people will get their.
So do you want American dollars or do you want yours? When you
American dollars is fine.
Okay.
American dollars is fine.
Okay.
Yep.
And when is this supposed to be given?
Is that a final number, or
Before
you're
we
still
go?
working on
We're
it?
still working on it. I think it's going to be $100,
Okay.
but the office is kind of giving me direction
Sure,
as to what
yeah.
we should do. But we've done that in the past.
Yeah, it works nicely.
It's worked. Yeah, it works really nicely. No, you don't have to worry about it at all. I just have to wear, you know, some kind of steel armor to. No, I'm just kidding.
No, of
No,
course.
we pass.
Keep it in safe,
We
and then
keep
we
it.
take it what we need that day.
Correct.
Just so you know.
We're safe. That we're not. I'm not walking around with 2.
I'm in the
25
level.
No.
I see here.
No.
With the dollars
Yeah.
flying out.
Your passports, again, there's really 2 options for you. Is either if you keep your passport on your person the entire time. I do that. I like to do that. There is an option that the hotels that we stay at do have safes. Okay? But I like to have it on my person at all times. Okay? That's why we want to make sure that you have a place that is very, and I always say up here because you know no one's going to come up and take something from this side of you, and if you put it in the back side of you, you never know. I did buy, like for Megan, she's got a backpack that has it's wires in them, so that they can't slash it off of you and take it. But if you have some kind of fanny pack that you want to wear or something like that, all good. And if you've traveled before, you know this is what you do when you travel. Airline tickets will be given out in March as we get closer, and you'll get a packet, and that packet will have all of your information laid out. Travel does a very good job of getting everything very organized and presented to you. So it'll be kind of just like a portfolio that will be given to you, and that you will then be able to look at all that and say, hey, I feel very comfortable, I got all the information that I need. I wanted to open up if there's other items that you wanted to discuss.
Other carry-ons?
Good question. There's going to be 1 carry-on and 1 suitcase. Suitcase has to be 50 pounds. 50.
Is the carry-on considered your purse, or is it
No.
beside your purse?
It's beside your purse. Typically they'll say that you have a personal item, which is a purse, I'll have a man purse, and then a backpack or another small suitcase. Again, I'm going to encourage you not to pack too much. I mean, you're not going to be carrying it, so that's nice. So you don't have to worry about that. But whenever I've traveled, I've always said, man, I didn't need half of this.
Well, wait a minute. She got her clothes all wet, and she wore half of mine.
That's right. Her suitcase got all wet when we were in Israel.
With the bus or whatever.
Yeah. But you'll have that ability. You don't have to worry about carrying your suitcases just in the airports.
Yeah.
As soon as we get out of the airport,
I'm gonna wear those same.
we have the bus crew that will take and put everything in, and we have the bellhops that will take everything and bring to our rooms. And vice versa, they'll take it from the rooms to the bus. And
Yeah, you'll get a time every day. Have your suitcase outside your hotel door at 6 a.m. or whatever.
What's nice is that
to the bus for you.
What's nice is that there's only 3 moves: Athens hotel, cruise, Rome hotel. Okay,
That's great.
and that's nice. And then we'll go out from there. Any other miscellaneous items? Again, we're at 28, folks. If you know of anybody who's very much interested. Yeah.
Like for hair dryers, things like that, are they furnished in the rooms in these hotels that we're going to, or do we have to bring?
No.
Hair dryers are furnished.
No
Yeah.
what?
Yeah. No.
Yes, they're furnished or no?
No, you don't necessarily have to bring hair dryers because hair dryers are typically in every hotel that we'll be staying in.
Maybe we'll just wear hats.
And
Yes.
besides when in Rome,
Yeah, do as the room.
Yeah, do as the Roman.
I don't think they use hair dryers.
I don't go out with wet hair, I'm
Yes.
asking.
Yes.
I
That
understand what you're saying.
yes.
I was teasing.
I know.
I love you.
Oh, I love you too.
I think
Wow.
I'm
Nice. I think there's gonna be a list. Kurt Floyd, who is a retired dentist out of Illinois, he's a phenomenal guy.
He's gone on our last 2 trips.
You're gonna love him. Kurt is great. Kurt is already building a list of apps that you should be putting onto your phone,
Nice.
and he's really good at really doing all this research for me. WhatsApp was on the top of his list, but then he also has apps that are map based that you can get that are all free, biblical apps too. So I am going to challenge you to do a couple things. One, get either an app on your phone, a biblical app of the Bible, so that you can have it on your phone, or buy a small pocket-sized Bible, okay, to bring along with you, because that we will be using on the trip, okay? And I'm going to encourage you, even though we're not going to be in Galatia, I'm going to encourage you to read the book of Galatians and the book of Acts. Okay, the book of Acts is going to give us the timeline, the history of Paul, and Galatia is going to give us the theology, kind of the purpose and meaning of Paul's missions. I'm going to grab something behind here. All right. I get to hand out 3 of these. And, okay, no, these are the books that I'm encouraging you to buy, okay? It's called The Apostle, The Life of Paul, John Pollock. And this is what I call a narrative of Paul's life. All right, he's going to take some freedom to write the story, but it's very biblically and historically accurate. Okay, he fills in the story, if you will, of what we don't read in the book of Acts or in Paul's letters. but it's very much follows his life, and I think it's one of the better reads of Apostle Paul.
Who's
I'm
the
gonna-
author again?
John Pollock, Pollock.
You can get it at Barnes and Nobles.
Have
and
to
if
order
you-
it,
and
though.
And if you, yes, you do have to order it. They don't have them in stock. But if you pick it up in the store, you don't have shipping and handling. And I ordered it through Barnes and Nobles. It was $18.95. The shipping was $5 something, so it was about $23 when all is said and done. But if you're close to Brookfield Square and can pick it up at Barnes and Noble there, it's about $18.95.
Also, if you know christianbook.com, if you are, I'm going to make sure I give you the right price here. If you order off of christianbook.com, they're $9.99.
Wow.
And
Wish we would have had that.
the shipping is going to be about $2 a book. So it's going to be about $11.99.
It's $12.03 on Prime.
What's that?
$12.03 on Prime.
$12.03 on Prime. Okay. So you can order these. I'm going to ask a couple questions because I can hand these out tonight. Okay. Where was Apostle Paul? Where did he write the book of Corinthians?
You just told us.
Where was he?
That's Noah.
Yes. Well, it's going to be a site that we are going to see. It's in Turkey.
Ephesus.
Okay.
That's what I was going to
Did
say.
you already have the book?
I ordered it, yeah.
I have. She's
Okay.
already read it.
All right. I'm going to give one to Janet.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
The next question I have is, does anyone remember what the name of the port was that I talked about in Athens? It's the largest or second largest port in Europe.
I'm starting to feel comfortable with this group.
That's good.
What's that port called?
I know he mentioned
It's called
I know it. It was a tongue twister.
Piraeus port. Okay. And I have one more book, and I'm thinking I gotta make this fair because can anyone tell me well, what was the name of the place where Paul was imprisoned in Israel?
Caesarea.
And Caesarea, which Caesarea? We talked about it.
Maritima?
Maritima. Well, you got the book, which is awesome. Now I can hand out this other book. If anyone does need this book, I don't want to choose between people because I've already done this, but I'm going to order you, both of you, a book as well, and I'll give this one to you. And so then we would all have them. Chris, I can order you one as well.
I'm good.
So we are going to have a phenomenal trip. I really believe that this is a trip that you'll remember. Athens, outside of Paris and Rome, is the most historical city in Europe. Even more than London. So, pretty significant places that we're going.
Cool.
Any other questions? Any concerns? It's 8 o'clock. I've talked a lot.
Showers and bathrooms.
Yep.
In
All
each room?
in each room. Yep. Yep.
Shipwise too.
Shipwise too. Correct.
But bring your own toilet paper just in case.
You know, it's always not a bad idea to have a roll of toilet paper.
Yeah.
You can do that,
Like in your day bag.
like in your day bag. Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Oh, especially
I
Italy.
like the
they
little
get it. That's
Pocket Kleenex
The
things.
pocket Kleenex things just to have.
Yeah.
When you pay fees to use the bathrooms, what is typically the
50
cost?
euros, wasn't it?
No.
25?
$50 to use
No, it's
the bathroom?
no, it's 50 cents.
50 cents is what it
Oh,
Yeah.
not yours.
It's like a coin.
Yeah.
You know, the thing with washcloths too, a lot of times in Europe, they don't always have washcloths.
Right.
They just have soap.
Correct. So those are the things that, as we move down for the next 4 weeks to 5 weeks, I'm gonna be sending out emails and we can kind of chat back and forth as a group to kind of say, hey, here are some suggestions. It might get kind of crazy that way, but I'm going to try to get all this so that people can hear from people like you, Holly, to say, hey, think about a washcloth, because you never know when they don't have that.
But and Gail will be at the next meeting.
Correct.
I think so, and she usually has every
A lot.
answer.
Gail actually works with Ami. I mean,
she works with Yair.
and she's gone on a lot of trips. And
She was with
Chris
us.
and I have gone with Gail on trips.
Very knowledgeable.
Very
nice.
But don't let it go to her head.
That's great. That's great.
She's pretty grounded.
She is very grounded.
Yeah,
She's a wonderful lady.
yeah,
You heard me say that, Gail.
yeah. She will make sure that everything is done.
Yeah,
and,
she's
and
good.
done correctly. So we got a lot of people who are going to be helping make this all happen in a great way.
When you say we're going to the mall, are the,
Some of them are too, what was it saying?
just, or initially you joked about seeing the Pope.
It
Is there
really
even a
happened, but some of it
possibility
is
of
really
such a
true. I
Some
wrote
of
it down,
That
I
is
wrote it
something
down
that's going to be
somewhere.
left to the last minute.
Okay, I know you had mentioned it at the other
What did
meeting,
you
that's
say?
why I asked.
If Yair can make that happen, he's reaching sainthood, I think. It's
Exactly. There was a reach out.
there's a challenge, Yair.
Yes. There was a conversation actually with Cardinal Dolan to possibly do that. That was a suggestion that came by way of a connection. So we are still waiting to hear back. And it's going to mostly do with the scheduling of where the Holy Father is, and also perhaps the Cardinal. So,
I have a question. I thought about
That'd be
this.
pretty cool.
If you actually meet the Pope, do we have to kiss his ring?
No, I won't kiss his hand.
You won't get anywhere near him.
You have to go through security, though, I bet.
yes.
A little bit of
Tough
security.
crowd, yeah, no. There's the Swiss Guard.
Yeah.
Swiss Guard. No, we're still having that conversation. So, one thing that's nice about our touring of the Vatican is that we are going to go before the gates open.
Wow.
Boy, that's a privilege.
We have the ability, so we will go
Nice.
before the rest of the crowd, which is very, very nice. Because
Saves a lot of time in lines. And
What's that? Yeah.
Saves a lot of time in lines.
Yeah, and there's a lot of lines in the Vatican
Mhm.
and the
I
Sistine
remember coming
Chapel.
back from Israel and we were there about 4 o'clock in the morning at the airport and it was packed and he walked us right through.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, yeah.
There
Parting
were a
of
lot
the
of
Red
people
Crown.
looking at us like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
what are you guys doing?
Who is this
We
guy?
know I hear. I don't know.
We're
So,
like, how's he doing it?
yeah, but we it'll be a very nice trip, and I'm happy to have all of you going. And there's 28. I think that by the time this is all done, we will have 33. Okay, 32. 2 pastors and 30 other people.
That'd be great.
Awesome. Well, you have my email, you have my phone call, my phone cell, 262-391-9398. You can call me, you can email me. Gail is also very responsive in her emails and phone calls.
So I think we have our final check due, I forget what day, like February 21 or
26th, I
20.
think.
Is that what
Yeah,
it is?
26th.
So will
is-
we know by then what the final payment will be? Because it's going to be less if we
Yeah.
have 30 people.
Yeah, we will. Gail is going to be reaching out to you within the next week.
Okay.
And she will give you, hey, here is the number that we got to, and this is what is due. Okay? I've kind of put out to the people who are thinking about going that they have this week to kind of consider. There might be some leeway there, but we want to make sure that by the 26th, we know what we're paying, how many people are going.
Oh, that'll reach us by email?
Yep.
And the money for the tips
Yep.
that we give to you, will you want it the day we leave or before that, like at the
Yeah.
March meeting?
Yeah, the March meeting, I'm most likely gonna collect at the March meeting.
Yeah.
And folks that are out of town, they're gonna probably do it when I see them in JFK. There'll be a lot of handing over of money in JFK. But we'll,
Well, they can send it to you too.
If there's additional cost to any of the optional day trips, will Yair let people know that?
that's all gonna be about by the March meeting. All the optional, there were a few people who upgraded their rooms on the cruise ship.
Yeah, we were gonna do that. We didn't wanna be down in a hole.
But there was,
Well, that is something that I've also addressed with Gail, and that Gail's gonna be reaching out to the group to see what the options are
Okay.
still at this point.